You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Wake up to the world you've been missing. Time to jump out of bed in the morning. No day, no life, now we're living. Can you feel it in the air that you're breathing? Time to show 'em what you're made of. Let's get back on track. Are you ready for a come on? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No coming down. Can you feel it all around? Welcome back.
Hello and welcome back to Super Mega Crash Beyond. I'm your host, Stephen White. With me, as always, my co-host, Lacey Finley.
Happy Monday.
Well, I hope everyone got over last week's episode.
I know, right?
I don't know if I did, but maybe I did. Who knows?
Yeah. You sound good. You sound good.
I'm feeling a little bit better. I mean, it's like, I don't want to compare it to anything. It's just, it's awful. I'm sure so many of you out there listening have experienced something.
Oh, sure.
20 years. That's all I just want to lay out there. Anyway,
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey.
we're not going to talk about that. I'm actually excited about today's episode
Me too.
because this was something that I'd mentioned to you in the Zero episode. I didn't explain what it was.
True.
But then we talked about it after the fact. But I didn't spoil it there. But this is something I've been excited to talk about because I genuinely want to explore this. I'm going to call it a movie. I know that we kind of watched it differently.
Right.
Because the version I had was made
Like one
crafted
episode.
together like a movie, and then yours was more like two
It was
episodes.
a part
of
one
it.
of two, yeah. And so
Yeah.
I just watched both parts because I was like, that seems to make sense then. Because the way this first part ended, that wasn't helpful, you know?
Yeah. But we're talking about the pilot episode of the Incredible Hulk TV series. Now, this
Yes.
came out in 1977, the very first epised, and I'm gonna keep it as like one.
You
Okay.
know, I don't know how it aired, but that could be. But they were
Genuinely
like
feel
47-ish minutes a piece. That's why
Yeah.
just assumed maybe that it was over the course of 2 weeks, you know, however it came on. But maybe the pilot, they did a two-parter or something, you know, to get it started. I don't know. I wasn't watching it then.
Right, right.
I
Neither was
I wasn't quite here yet. So
Right. Yeah, I was about almost 2 years shy of this premiere date, November 4th, if you want to get very specific.
Ooh, okay. Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
That seems kind of late in a season. Well, it wasn't as well. Anyway, I'm used to seeing earlier shows have 23, 24 episodes. So I was surprised to see this was 13, I think.
Yeah, for
I
the
didn't
first
watch
season.
them all, but yeah, when I was looking at it. But yeah.
Right. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about it, now, we could, over time, if you know, it warrants that, if somebody else wants to go beyond this, we could talk about the series as a whole.
Right.
But I really just wanted to focus on the pilot episode, mainly because I truly believe this is an underrated gem because people remember the show.
Sure.
Or at least, you know, I feel like it's in the subconscious of pop culture.
It was in syndication quite a bit through the 80s, so I know I've seen some of the shows.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've watched this one before, though. So let's just say it felt brand new all over again because,
Yeah.
you know, I would have
But-
been super young then, even if I was watching it. So I ain't going to remember.
But so much of what's in this is stuff that we've seen in other media. Like the one line, okay? And this is not a spoiler, but we hear it all the time.
We hear it now everywhere, yeah.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. That happened in this pilot.
And when he said it, I admittedly threw my hands up going, yes!
But this is where it came from.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it all originated here. Even the way that the experiment goes down, if you watch the 2008, was it 2008? Yeah, 2008 Incredible Hulk film that was
With,
the very, with Ed Norton. The whole opening credits, they practically remake that whole scene like from the opening credits. Everything in the opening credits of the series going forward comes from this episode. So if you've seen those opening credits.
I'd
but
have
you've
to go
never
back now to make
Yeah.
the comparison, but okay.
But yeah, everything that you see in those opening credits comes from this.
Interesting. Now, see, that I didn't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
So why talk about it? Why deep dive into it? I genuinely feel there's something really good here that no one talks about. Because I don't know about you, and maybe you don't have the connection to it like over time that I do. But the very first time that I actually watched this, there was a video store. One of those ancient buildings from way back when.
Brick and mortar stores. Remember those? Yeah.
There was a video store in one of the towns over that I lived in. And they were doing this. I guess they were trying to unload some of their stock on the shelves, like movies that no one watched anymore. So they had this big sale trying to get rid of all these VHS tapes, and they were selling them dirt cheap. So they had them all sitting outside on tables, and they were just like, anything with a certain dot on it, that's this much, this dot's this much, and so on and so forth. So I thought, well, shit, I didn't have like a big VHS collection, but who knows what I could find. So I thought I'd thumb through. And I found a VHS copy of this as a movie.
Was it the full season, or just
no.
pilot?
It was just this episode.
Interesting.
So the way it was even kind of branded was like it was a movie because you had the VHS cover, you had the cover, everything. It just made it look like, yeah. I mean, it's about a 90-minute movie when you
watch
it
it back
together.
to back. Yeah.
So that's how it was assembled. That's how I got to see it. And again, when the version that I watched, I have on Amazon, and I purchased it because it was the full movie, and I paid like $2 for it. So it was just like, hell yeah.
These days, what's that?
But then, obviously I wanted to be able to have the full season. So I don't like how Amazon does their gatekeeping thing. Because if you buy something over there, you don't have it on other platforms versus like Vudu or Movies Anywhere. And then they're just like, well, hey, if you've got all your accounts linked, then you can watch it everywhere, whatever.
Kind of like GOG Galaxy for games.
Yeah. But Amazon don't do that. They're just like, no, you bought it over here.
Yeah.
You just have to watch it here. You can't watch it anywhere else.
Until we take it away, and then sorry about it. Yeah.
Which is all the more reason I'm trying not to buy stuff on Amazon anymore. As far as digital movies.
Typically, if you buy anything digital, you don't own it. You own it as long as that service is around, basically, and that's it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So hopefully Vudu sticks around for a while.
Right.
Because that's where I've got a lot of my digital copies. And I don't have to worry about anyone stealing them except corporations. Anyway.
True. Yeah.
Which I can't stop them.
The ones who will win.
But anyway, that's where I first got that. I bought that VHS tape, and I thought, because I was a fan of the show. I grew up as a kid watching the show, and when I had this opportunity, I don't ever recall seeing the movie, like the pilot episode, because it was never, I guess, available, or maybe I just missed it. I was not watching it as a kid.
Attention. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As a kid, when that was on syndication, like you said, I was probably like 5 or 6, and then I knew of the show, and then the ones that I was really familiar with, as far as this goes, is there were 3 made-for-TV movies. The Incredible Hulk Returns, The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, and The Death of the Incredible Hulk. And those I, recorded on VHS, had my own little copies. I have digital copies of them all now, except for The Death, because for some reason that's not available. That one's got me boggled. But the other
I wonder
two
where
are.
one would find that then. We could do it.
I did find it.
Oh, did you find it?
Yeah, you had to find it on the Internet Movie, not what is it? What do you call it? The Internet Archives. Someone uploaded a copy. It's okay. It's not pristine.
It'll get you by.
Clean. Yeah. It was viewable. I've seen worse. Anyway, but yeah, that's kind of what I grew up with. Again, knowing the show, but the show was not very available like it is today. Now you can find it anywhere. But I had that VHS tape always stuck with me, because then it gave me context for everything going forward. Because again, if you watch that and then say you went to The Incredible Hulk Returns as a sequel and you just watch them all as movies, it kind of works.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't have to have all the adventures in between for everything else to work because, and I don't want to get, like everyone knows, fucking spoilers.
I mean, we're
not
spoiling
gonna-
a 50-year-old show at this point, guys. I think you've had time.
Yeah.
If you meant to do it, you would have by now.
But the show was essentially, he's trying to find a cure, but he's also trying to stay hidden as he's trying to do so. So it wasn't always like every episode he's trying to find a cure or anything like that. It was just like, where is he this week? Maybe he's just trying to get by. He's got a job. He's just doing whatever. And then he gets wrapped up in whatever, you know, plot of the week where he's some criminal
It followed
organization.
there was a what's the word I'm looking for? A formula to
formula.
it.
Yeah, very formulaic in that way. But they did, on occasion, go outside that formula. And those are the ones I really appreciated because it was almost like it broke up the monotony. I'm not saying there was anything wrong with the formula. It could be interesting depending on the characters, the story. I know there were a handful that I could think of right off the top of my head that were, for what it was, even for formulaic television, like, well, that's kind of, you know, pretty good little story, and you know, you just throw the Hulk in
and
for good
different
measure. Why
than
not?
what else was on TV at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a reason it worked. There's a reason it was on television for like 5 years.
It was either
at
4 or
least.
5 seasons. It
it
wasn't
was
like
5.
a decade, but I mean, that's still a good run. 4 or
Oh,
5
yeah.
seasons is a very good run. Yeah.
So it wasn't. It was popular for a reason. The formula worked. It was very simple, and the show benefited because of that, and that's why it ran. But again, we're talking about episode 1, and the reason I want to talk about it was because of how well I feel like they tell this story and how emotionally invested I got in the character. I don't know about you, but when I rewatched this last night just to kind of have a refresher.
Sure. Yeah.
And damn if I don't get weepy at the beginning and at the end of this movie.
They really do try to kill you with that right away. I'm dead inside now, so I didn't cry, but I wanted to. I probably shouldn't joke about that, but yes, it's a gut punch. It's kind of like when you're trying to watch the beginning of Up and you're like already sobbing and you're like, why are you doing this to me? I've been here 10 minutes, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah. So let's break that down. So versus what we've seen in any other form of this story. Well, let's use the MCU, for example, or even like the other movie that Ang Lee did in 2003. It basically came down to they're doing a study and they're trying to tap into either healing properties in something. I think in the MCU, it was like they were trying to recreate the super soldier Captain America thing.
I was going to ask you about the differences because the show definitely changed some things for sure.
So, and even in the comics, it was just like they were testing out a gamma bomb, and they were just like, okay, and then someone happened to be out on the testing site, and then Bruce ran out and kind of shielded the guy and just got caught up in it.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, every other narrative for this character has been
Gamma.
scientific studies, and there's an accident, oh my God, and then boom, and then he gets irradiated, and then the Hulk kind of comes up. This, to me, is much more tragic and heart-wrenching because
And idiotic.
Idiotic, but you can understand where he's coming from.
To a degree. Yeah.
To a degree, but think about it, okay? So,
well, I guess maybe a little more context too if they don't know, because the studies they were doing were on people who had feats of superhuman strength in times of high duress. So, like, you know how somehow adrenaline kicks in and you're able to do something so crazy that you've not been able to ever do and probably won't ever be able to do again, but you're so high stressed and so in adrenaline that your body somehow manages to pull something out. Example was a kid and a son, or the son and the daughter. God damn it. The mother and the son, Jesus, in a car accident. And she just managed to find superhuman strength to lift up the car enough for the door to get open and her kid get out. So stuff like that.
But that one is key to the whole thing.
Right.
Or at least kind of kicking everything off, because they do explore other stories, which I appreciated as well.
Other people.
And I genuinely want to know, because I've not seen any trivia to the contrary, to confirm nor deny, but I'm very curious to know if they maybe dug a little bit to find stories that were very similar to this.
I'm sure, probably.
Because even the way they presented them, like, I'll give props to the actors all day. I mean, they genuinely seemed like they went through those experiences because they were talking about it. They almost like they had been there.
Right.
So, genuine props to the actors involved there because they really sold those stories about their extreme situations. But for David, as we call him in this show, because Bruce,
I had to look that up because I'm like, why all of a sudden is he David here? But
because apparently Bruce was too gay of a name.
See, and that was the one that I read where I'm like, is that really true? And apparently that was just like a rumor that got started. But apparently the biggest reason was the director didn't want it to sound too much of a comic book, which I just kind of laughed. I'm like, you're doing a show about a comic book, painting a guy in green paint, but Bruce is where you were gonna lose people. All right. And then you changed it later to Dr. David Bruce Banner to what, like Pander, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. But that I found interesting. But yeah, I read that too, where they were like, it was too, flamboyant of a name. And I'm like, really?
In the 70s?
I mean, I don't know. And it's just, and then that's why, David's just such a macho man name, I guess. I don't know. But I thought that was hilarious that it sounds too much like a comic book. I'm like, dude, do you know what you're shooting right now?
Yeah.
This isn't
exactly.
That
whole argument, I never understood that for the life of me. When you're going to sit there and argue, well, this sounds too much like this. It's like, but you do realize what you're doing. It's the Watchmen argument all over again, where they said, let's change the aliens because that's too far-fetched. It's like, says the fucking movie with the big blue guy who's God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Trying to get your realism somewhere. I don't know. But anyway, that was a thing in the 70s, apparently.
Anyway, but yeah, they start this film off with you kind of getting to know David and his
wife.
I was going to say they never explicitly showed that, but I remember seeing a ring. So
I think maybe I just assumed.
And that, I guess I've never connected those dots, but it's true. I honestly feel like that had to have been his wife. Had to have been.
Either that, or I mean, they'd been together a while. They make sure to give you a lot of montages of their life. Yeah.
Which I don't want to knock it because it does have a very dated quality to it. But at the same time, I appreciate what they're doing more so when it comes time for the tragedy. Because the thing that's really interesting about this pilot is there are moments where it feels like it's following TV tropes of the time or just what was working, but then they do some very cinematic things that it's really impressive, like when you think about it.
Well, I can only imagine how long it took them to film all of that B-roll, because dear God, there was a lot of B-roll. It was like 3 minutes worth in the beginning before a word was even spoken. 3 to 5 minutes into the episode before a single word was spoken. Guys, it was just vignettes of their life. And I'm like, she's going to die. They're taking this way too long to keep flipping,
But they were showing you the highs and the lows. They were showing how much they loved each other, all the little things they did to each other. And you kind of appreciate it because you were almost condensing this entire relationship within that 3 minutes. Again, it may go on a little long.
It catches you up to speed.
Yeah, but
their relationship. Yeah.
You're definitely getting that sense of, okay, they were really in love with one another. They had a wonderful life together. But what I said, how the cinematic, how it changes is once they do that frame up of the car.
Yeah.
And they're getting in, they're right below the car, like under the bumper almost. And the music shifts like instantaneously, just like, oh shit, everything got a little unnerved.
Bum, 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 bum.
And it was just, I really appreciated that because it almost, it immediately sells, something bad's about to happen. Yeah. And it wasn't like dun, 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 because some movies will do that very super dramatic. It's like, whoa, 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 take it back a notch.
Yeah, like, what is about to happen?
But it's like, it's just this very kind of calm, dun, dun, and then suddenly, here's the car, and he's like, dun, everything kind of gets a little quiet. And then the tragedy happens, and like you mentioned before, the mother and son had the exact same experience.
Yeah, it was the exact situation. Yeah.
Yeah. They were driving, David and Laura were driving in the car. Tire blows out, flips. David gets thrown from the car.
Because we didn't have seatbelts. Remember that. We weren't
Right.
we weren't about that life yet.
What shame, they should have been.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
Or
I
maybe
mean,
not.
I guess he survived it, is all I'm going to say. He was the
That's
one
true.
thrown from the vehicle.
So he goes and he tries to obviously flip over the car.
Right.
And then he just has visions of everything and he can't do it. He wakes up in his bed and...
This has been nightmares of his.
Yeah. I think it's that scene right there with Bill Bixby. And this is where I'll give him credit all day. He carried that show.
He did
so
it
much.
well.
Because...
the acting for the most part was fairly solid. I mean, you could tell that, you know, there's style changes we've made over the years.
Sure.
But yeah, he did well, and he was pretty solid for up until his death, I think, right?
Mhm.
Like into the
Yeah.
90s or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, he played it. He loved the character. I mean, I think it showed. But in that scene where he wakes up from the bed, it's just...
Yeah.
You can see everything in his eyes because he just woke up. He's in a panic.
Mhm.
And then it's like
Just
everything
relived this
kind of...
moment.
Yeah, clicks back into place. And he doesn't oversell it. It's just that he gets overwhelmed with it. And you're just like, God damn, you know, you feel for him.
Yeah.
So bad.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because they never really indicated how long it had been, or at least I don't recall.
They do in the second part.
How long did they say?
10 months.
Oh, so it's fairly recent.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
very recent, which is why the ending of that movie was kind of like, oh, wait. You know, it's like, that's soon. We'll get to there. But
Sure.
yeah, I feel like once we get to where we're talking about like Elena, who is the scientist he's working with, I do feel like I remembered her saying, I know it's only been over the last 10 months it's only when he was talking about how many times he was having the nightmares. And she said, well, it's only been 10 months. Like, duh, of course you might still be having these nightmares. And that's what I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
We're doing this like basically right away after her death.
I guess I was always under the impression that maybe it'd been over a year.
It feels like at
something
least
like
a
that.
year or two. If I hadn't heard that line, I probably would have just assumed that myself, to be
Sure.
fair. But yeah.
But from that point on, that kind of gives you a glimpse into what he's doing because he works at this institute, the Culver Institute, which they are doing these studies, as we mentioned, trying to figure out what how
these
you
people
tap
did
in.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. How did people tap into the strength? And it frustrates him even further talking to the mother and her son because it's like, this is the exact same thing. She could do it. I couldn't. What
Why
the hell?
couldn't I? Yeah.
You know? So they continued to do some digging. They find some variations. I think they said that they found an abnormality in their DNA.
Yes.
Then
Because they're doing all their
cross-compared.
sciencey talk. Like, maybe
Yeah.
we need to go deeper. What do you mean? Into the nucleus or whatever the heck it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only we need to go deeper than that, into the DNA. And I do find it hilarious, like how clear in the 70s we had a shot of how DNA goes around. And like, maybe I don't know when all this tech came around. But I'm like, that seems too clear of a shot. I don't know.
I don't
Maybe
know.
I should look it up. I might be sounding like an idiot right now, but
Who knows?
know. I love that I'm picking apart the scientific, you know.
This science fiction program.
Yeah, like how would this really even happen? You know, but it is, whatever.
But yeah, they do some digging. They find that there was an abnormality in the DNA of all the people they've interviewed. So then they test David and then find that he also has the same abnormality.
Yeah.
So it's like, what the shit?
Right.
This doesn't make sense. And now this is where it could get a little muddy with the science. But again,
Like we need to let that go. Yeah,
Yeah.
like we're making a Hulk here. It's
for the sake of the story, I at least give them credit for at least trying to explain it in some ways, in some fairly scientific fashion that may make sense to some people. I mean, I can't.
you use enough big words, we're all gonna go, uh-huh.
I can't argue with the science because I don't know if it's
I
true
don't
or
know
not.
it. Yeah.
But he says that like he talks to one of his colleagues and
Which, by
mentions
the
something.
way, that guy.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you really even caught the throwaway line, but I couldn't stop laughing at it for about maybe 5 minutes afterwards. But I'll
Which
let
one?
you go ahead. Well, when they were finally talking about it, and he was the guy was talking about how he was messing around with the gamma gun or
Yeah.
whatever, and seeing how high it could go. And then David looks at him and goes, "Well, how high can it go?" And the guy's like, "Mm." And it was just the way he went, "Mm." And they kept moving around. It's just like that was the most genuine reaction where it's like, I don't fucking know, dude. Like,
Like, they didn't write it in the script, damn it.
it's just top notch to that actor. I tell you what. Yeah.
But where was that? Oh yeah.
No,
So
sorry. We were
no.
talking about
So
finding out what the difference was between his night and everyone else's. Yeah.
yeah, they were trying to sort all that stuff out, and then he talking to the colleague. He heard something about sunspots, gamma radiation,
Yeah.
and then did some tests, like pinpointing the specific times that those moments happened to these
Where
people.
it was like high, super high. Yeah.
Right. And then he could correlate that to sunspot activity, which had like high levels of gamma radiation in the area or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So he theorized that triggered that response because on the day it happened to him, all gamma activity was low.
Yeah.
And he was like, aha.
And everyone else's was very high. That they
So-
had shown in the show so far. Yeah.
Right. So what would be considered a very stupid thing to do,
Very stupid. Come on. Very stupid.
he thinks that in the interest of science, being
Sure.
a scientist,
The first time you could say, for science.
yeah,
And it's
for science,
true.
he goes to give himself a gamma radiation injection in
Mm-hmm.
hopes of maybe triggering something to help him do that. Now,
Yeah.
that's the other thing, too, that as a scientist, he should
Mm-hmm.
have talked through, but
He tried, remember? He let the phone ring 3 whole times before he hung up and couldn't get a hold of her.
that is true.
3 rings, yo. In a day and age where have to be at home.
As a scientist,
Yeah.
now I understand that's a big breakthrough in the research, at least having something to correlate that he can be like, aha, I
Something
think
I
we
could
found
test,
it.
maybe. Yeah.
But being a scientist, you should know to research it further, not act on something immediately. But again, this is fiction. I understand.
And they're probably trying to play on his emotions like they were showing us in the beginning here. So he's
Sure.
not going to be thinking completely clearly. He wants an answer to why he couldn't save his wife.
And why he thinks that this is just gonna,
I don't know.
I don't know. Again, understanding. I think that's where the grief kind of works to its advantage here, is because you're thinking, like you said, he's not thinking clearly. He's just like, I need an answer.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do this. And if it works, it's great. And then when it doesn't, it just makes him angrier.
Right.
He's just like, well, God damn it. You know, it's
Right.
like I was onto something and this shit's not working. Fuck it all.
Yeah.
And he just
Probably
drives
thought it was
home.
going to give him some peace of mind.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
find out why. Yeah.
So he drives home and
Wouldn't you know it? It's raining.
he gets a flat tire and then
Yeah.
just goes
It
to
just
try
goes
and change
south.
it, and shit goes bad, and then rah, the Incredible Hulk comes out.
And
Yeah,
here we go with the Hulk. Yeah, he was getting mad
Mm-hmm.
because he couldn't.
He
yeah.
busts off that tire and flips that car.
Yeah, he breaks the car. Like, he slams it so many times. Lou had to have had a great time. I mean,
Oh,
just
yeah.
slamming it, throwing the car, which was funny. I was like, in the MCU, he would have hit the car once and it would have flown, So, baby Hulk, though, right? Like, he's learning. We could explain it away to baby Hulk, maybe.
I could understand where people would be a little disappointed, like if you were only aware of the MCU Hulk
And then go back,
and you come back to this and you're like, what the hell? He can't even be shot?
Well, it's live action, too. Could you imagine doing a live action Hulk nowadays? Do
Yeah.
you think that would even fly? Everyone's so used to
Not
the
like
CGI
this.
Hulk, Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to do the whole Mark Ruffalo, the Disney budget, the whole 9 yards. They're not going to go for this anymore, which is sad because,
There is a charm to it.
there is. It
Yeah.
worked at the time. I mean, I'm not. That's the beauty. That's why it lasted so long.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Worked
People-
well enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting enough. Anyway, so from this point, he's finally hulked out, and he goes out to. He's just wandering around in the woods nearby, and then he comes across this little girl. Now, did you feel like this scene felt very reminiscent of like Frankenstein? The scene where the little girl's kind of by the lake. Now, granted, it doesn't play out the same, but
No. Yeah.
I felt like it was very reminiscent of that in some regards.
And I was trying to figure out what angle they were going for with him basically like stalking up behind her. She's sitting by a lake. This kid's going to fish. So she's trying to put a worm on a fishing hook. Unbeknownst to her, this green monster's coming up behind her. And of course, instantly freaks out when she sees him. Because,
Sure.
I mean, why wouldn't you? I've never seen someone so huge and green before in my life, And so she screams and then tries to take off in her boat, which of course she tips over and is now like flailing in the water. And then, this is where it starts to get kind of funny because then Dad comes over and like, oh my God, honey, as the Hulk has already pushed over a tree and tried to like move it over to her to grab so she won't drown. But Dad's like, I'm going to shoot him anyway.
Yeah.
It does. And then I thought that it was kind of funny because like they made it a very dramatic. He's running to the wood, coming at him. He's trying to, get the bullets into his gun and he just can't do it, and then he comes up and breaks the gun, picks dude up. I love that it had to be shirt, collar, and crotch, by the way. Shirt, collar, and crotch, and throws him into the lake. Right. And then now Dad and daughter are back together again and he runs off. But yes, that it was all. I just love the dramatics of zooming in on Hulk's face coming through the trees and then up to the guy trying to, so now we know where those tropes came. Like, I can't do guns anymore. I don't, I'm too scared. Yeah.
But it's funny, too, because it's very much the way the scene is set up. It's to help you understand that he's not going to hurt anybody.
Right.
Or at least that is the whole purpose of it seems like, because they do have that conversation later on that he's worried he's going to kill someone and they're just like, you don't kill, he doesn't kill. And that's what, because he was trying to help.
It looked like he was going to play like, hi little kid, not realizing I look scary. I don't know.
And he was just trying to he didn't know any better. He couldn't help it.
Right.
And then the father, again, I'm trying to understand his mindset. Yeah, I'm trying to understand his mindset because if I saw some stranger near my child, especially a big, giant,
like that.
green monster, I may be a little panicky. But if I also see that she's in the lake drowning and he's holding a tree, being like, try to hang on to it, I don't know. I can process that.
Unless you're thinking he's using the trunk to try to hit your daughter or something in the lake. I don't know. If I saw some dude holding the trunk, I don't know if I thought I would be able to do anything anyway. Of course, you're going to try. It's your spawn, right? Like, you love your spawn. I've been told, right? So you don't want them to die. So I don't know. I don't know how I would have reacted either. I might have done the same.
Yeah. So you could say he didn't overreact per se because he thought he was trying to save his daughter.
Right.
And he's
no dumber than giving yourself all the gamma to think you're going to get strength, I guess.
That's true.
All the gammas.
All the gammas. Now, fun fact, and some people may know this, some may not. You may not. So I'm gonna share a little something with you. There is one, I don't want to say frame, but one little shot within that scene where the tree, I think it's right before he pushes the tree down, where it is not Lou Ferrigno, but in fact, actor Richard Kiel, who people would probably know as Jaws from the James Bond movies. The big, like he was in Happy Gilmore.
Why the hell would we replace Ferrigno for something like that? I know you're going to tell me, but like.
He was originally cast before Ferrigno. And apparently they didn't like how he was looking, how it just wasn't working. And
what's dude's name? Michael, I want to look him up.
Richard Kiel.
Richard Kiel, go ahead.
Keil, I think. And you'll know him the moment you see him.
Yep.
And he was originally cast, and I guess it just wasn't working. They weren't liking it. So I guess there was just that one shot, or one of the one shots in the movie that they just didn't redo with Lou Ferrigno. So that he does have like a small little shot in the film. Where you can't really see his face, but it is him.
I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, it's so quick. You unless you knew what you're looking for, you wouldn't spot it.
No, I just kept remembering going, "My God, was he huge? His trapezoids had trapezoids." I was just like, "My God!" Like I know, and I've seen him in person, and I'm not saying he's small now by any stretch of the imagination, but like, dear God, when he's just standing there flexing over and over again, I was just like, oh my God, like he would break all of us, He's a big dude. He's not very tall, but he's a big dude.
Yeah. So from this point, I think we got past the fit with the
throwing him in the lake and
and all that stuff. So it comes back to his friend Elena and coming to her house disheveled. Well, after he had kind of
he's finally calmed down. Yeah, now he's David again.
He spotted himself in the lake, and
Oh, that's right. He had the
I
moment
thought
of
that
the
was
lake.
kind of an interesting, because we don't, if you watched any of the show, you never see the transformations really. You just kind of see him Hulk out, he runs off, and then you cut back and it's like, David's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of had to, but they did have one detransitioning scene, which we'll talk about when we get to there. But yeah, you're right. It was just kind of like you'd see a clothes rip or something, and then the camera would cut away, and then you'd see maybe David with the wig on or something. They would do cuts back and forth. Yeah. And
I even liked how there were moments where he was like mid-transformation before he kind of really went primitive, where you'd kind of hear the voice had kind of dropped in tone. Because like even where he was seeing himself in the water, kind of coming back to it, you could just heard him say, "My God," under his breath, but it was deep. Like they had pitched it down a lot. So I thought that was kind of an interesting take on what you're doing. And so from there, he goes back to Elena's house and tries to explain everything that's going on. Of course, she berates him for doing the gamma thing. Of course. Good. You know,
of course
she shouldn't have been like, oh, okay. That's a normal thing to do.
I tried to call you, and that's when I went, you let it ring 3 times, bud. Like, she could have been in the bathroom for crying out loud. Yeah. As she should have.
Yeah, she gave him hell for it, and she was just like, this is not... What are you doing?
Right?
You know? It's like, I understand the excitement that you may have been going through, or you thought you had a breakthrough, but for God's sakes, man.
Like, look at you.
Yeah. So they decide that they're going to try and figure out what happened. And in the meantime, we also get introduced to a very pivotal character to the overall show, but I also feel like he's very pivotal here, a lot more than he could have been. Like, they could have fuck this over with this character. And I felt like that there's an element later on that we'll touch on that I feel like he's important for this very reason. And I feel like makes him the ultimate villain because of it, but we'll get to it.
Yeah.
But again, Jack McGee, our star reporter who's always on the trail of the Incredible Hulk.
Did you kind of think Willem Dafoe light?
Jack Colvin does have a little bit of that.
It's the freaking cheeks, man. It's the top face structure where I was like, why do I know him? It's not Willem, but it looks like Willem, you know. But he was like huge in the 70s and 80s once I looked it up, and I was like, all right.
Now, the only other thing I think I've ever seen him in, I mean, there may have been other TV shows or movies that I just don't know about, but he was a doctor or a psychiatrist in Child's Play.
You know, okay, then maybe that's where I was like, why can I not shake the feeling that I've seen this dude's face before? Because like when I was looking him up, most of his credits were I was too young to pay attention. But I'm looking at it now, and he was on MacGyver. Apparently.
I mean, he's been around. Yeah, he's a fairly... Yeah.
No, he was pretty prominent through the 70s and 80s, and then it looks like a couple of things in the 90s, and I don't even know if dude's alive, if I'm honest.
I don't think
December 1st, 2005. So, okay, there you go.
So he played that character to a T, and I appreciate that. Now, he was kind of a prominent character in the show. Like I said, they didn't use him all the time. He wasn't like in every episode, I don't think.
Well, according to IMDb, he was in all 82.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He was at least credited. Now, whether or not he was in them, I don't know. So
I always thought they put your episodes you were in, but maybe you're right. Because
I mean, he was top billed in the show. It was like Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno, and Jack Colvin. But then they were the only 3 that were in the main opening credits as far as actors credited. So that might be why. But I don't remember him being in all episodes, but he may have been, and I just don't remember.
I'd have to rewatch the whole thing to be,
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah.
But again, the whole purpose of him is to be that slimy reporter.
The complication in the story, yeah.
Yeah, and then trying to do whatever. But what I appreciated, and I don't want to go too deep into it if, we ever want to talk about the show as a whole, but there was at least a moment where I guess they decided to change things up as far as the formula went. And they added a wrinkle into that relationship that I appreciated the hell out of, because I think when they were showing these episodes on the Sci-Fi Channel, when that was back when they spelled it proper, not the stupid Y crap.
Yeah, I don't know when that came in. But
yeah, I don't either. It still bothers me. I don't know why. Anyway, there was an episode that I'd never seen before because, I was trying to catch up on some of them, and this is where I saw some more than I ever had as a kid. And there was an episode where there was like a forest fire, and I don't remember it, but it was a two-parter, but there was a forest fire, something like that. He got caught out in it, and David also happened to be out there, but he knew if he saw his face that he would know who he was.
Right, yeah.
So he had to bandage his face up like he was, burnt.
The Invisible Man. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was trying to rescue him to get him out of this area because I think he'd busted his knee or something like that. So he had him like on a splint, or made him a splint, and kind of had him on this little, what do you call them, where you carry?
Like the stretcher?
Stretcher, something like that. Like a like a handcrafted stretcher or something like that he's made to try and help him, get him to help.
Yeah.
But also had to hide his identity. And it was, like I said, it was a two-parter thing to where he finally found out that the Hulk was not just a creature, but a man who could become the creature. Because at the end of it, there was a moment where they were kind of stuck and he just hulked out in front of him. But again, he had his mask on. But so he didn't see who it was, but he knew.
That's his confirmation. Like, I just saw it happen.
Yeah. So it changed his whole perspective. And from that point going forward, because they had bonded and he got to know him, he felt like he had an obligation to help him after that. Like he wanted to help him. And I thought that was kind of interesting how they changed the relationship.
Made him still a human being, not just some sleazeball reporter. Yeah.
But here, he's definitely sleaze because he's trying to get his big story. And I'm not 100% sure what exactly he was after at first.
Yeah, because when he first came around, obviously we didn't even know anything. He hadn't been put gamma. He hadn't done any of that kind of stuff. And I want to say it was something to do with the testing that they were doing about the superhuman strength or something to that effect, and that's why he was like, I don't want to be in your paper, I'm not interested, none of this kind of stuff. Oh, I disagree, So I mean, I feel like it had to have bbeen something along those lines because we hadn't been shown anything else yet, unless we were supposed to just know that Jack wants to get a hold of David Banner for some reason.
Yeah, it seemed like he had some interest in the research facility or the people.
Whatever they were doing in there,
Yeah, it may have been that, and they just, again, I don't recall.
Yeah.
And I
don't remember them saying either.
Yeah, I've seen it so many times, but I never recall an actual reason. He's just like, I'm a reporter, I want to do an interview, and they're like, no.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets left pretty much. So he shows up at the door to kind of, make his intentions known at that point, and then we lose sight of him until a little bit later. But then they go to one of their, off-site facilities from the main building. And they've got this big pressure chamber, and they were just going to see if they could possibly
get him to Hulk out again. Yeah.
But they didn't even know what it was. They were just like, let's see if we can't do some tests, maybe recreate some things.
Figure out what happened to you last night. Let's make what happened last night happen again if we can.
Yeah. If we can.
Yeah.
And they go through all these different things. Chit-chat.
I still thought that was funny, the whole things they did. Because again, I'm like, you would have just fried yourself in there, but whatever,
And she warned him. I mean, she was telling him, she's like, I don't really feel like this is a great idea. And he's like, well, we're going to do it. And
well, his great idea, guys, by the way, was to recreate the evening of the accident because nothing was happening and he was getting bored in there. So he decided to break a pipe. Or not break it at that point. He undid the pipe. So it's water. So basically now it's supposed to be raining in there. But that wasn't working. So he's like, but there was lightning that night too. And she's like, well, how the hell do you want me to? I'm fresh out of lightning, David. And so he decides to have her turn off the power while he breaks the circuit breaker and pulls the wires apart enough for when she turned it back on, it's causing itself to spark between the two. So he's sitting in water. And electricity. But an hour later, he's still fine. He's just sitting there like wet, and I'm like, this is funny. She's like, I'm calling it, David. This is not working. And you're just looking pretty pitiful in there right now.
Now, we did kind of gloss over one little bit, but they even kind of confirm it here before they go through all that. Like after they've kind of locked him up in there, she talks to him about... Like she brought him some groceries or something like that just to kind of help him get through. And she mentions the gamma injection that he took. Now, you had mentioned, the guy who had been calibrating everything. So this guy had been going through the facility and just like boosting the abilities of all
Turning
these
it up
machines.
to 11.
So he had like all these machines had this little piece of white tape that he had kind of scribbled on saying what he jacked it up to. Well, as far as the gamma injector went, he had apparently calibrated it, stuck the white tape on there, but he didn't write down what he'd done.
Yeah, so we didn't know how much.
So David assumed it was only, 200,000
like
rads
200 or
or something like that?
300,000, yeah.
And she was like, "Yeah, you bumped it to the white tape," and I was like, "Yeah, the full 300,000." She's like, "Yeah, no, you took 2 million."
Yeah.
And
It's like,
you just
what?
saw him. I took a dose that high, and she's like, "Yeah,
Yeah, that's
probably."
what I was like. You took all the gammas, dude. All of them. All of them
You're
are
lucky
in your
to be
brain,
standing.
by the way. Did we even talk about this machine, by the way? Because I want to know if this machine's even a real thing. Because holy crap, this device he had to put himself in for it. It was like he had to crawl under a pole, which, by the way, it looks like a lap. Like if you were on a ride, you know, the pole that goes down so you don't fly off the ride. And I'm like, I hope other people that lifts up for them. I hope not all patients are having to crawl under there. But it was like he put his face in maybe those x-ray machines you do for like your teeth around your head. But he had like straps around the top, straps around his chin. And then he had to like tilt it back like those professional gamer chairs you would see happen and spin himself around. I'm like, what the hell is this machine? And how is he able to just do all of that from right there in the chair? Like he had a long strip of all of the controls. I was fascinated by this machine. And then they're building it up. They're building it up and their music and this. And then he turns it on and then turns it back off. And I'm like, well, I was expecting a laser at least, like show me something happening. Nope, they just put a white light on his forehead that he lined himself up correctly, and that was it.
We got to see the transformation inside.
It's just like that whole to-do about him strapping himself in and doing all this for that to be all that we saw. I was like, that just felt like a little bit of a letdown, you know? And then he just climbs back out. He still can't lift up the stretcher and he goes on with his night, you know?
I mean, he tried. He
did. So, yes. So he's taken 2 million. He's in a tube.
And it takes dreaming about Laura again for it to trigger everything.
Because we still don't know why.
Because I'll be honest, genuinely they should have thought. Now, granted, I don't know what the thought process was, and I guess it does make sense from a scientific perspective if you could try to recreate to try and figure out what may have happened, so they didn't understand that it was rage, anger, or anything that triggered it. Yeah. So smart that they did lock him up. Yeah. Because they didn't know how it was going to trigger. And all it took was just him taking a nap and having that dream again. And then there it is.
Mad. Yeah.
And then he tears the shit out of that pressure chamber.
Yeah, he does.
I don't know how you feel about it. And tell me if you agree or not. But I feel like, and this is another thing I appreciated, I feel like they went full horror movie here. Like to try and present what's going on. Yeah. Because the way she's sitting there narrating what he's doing.
Yeah, she's recording for science, by the way, guys. She was like watching his signals and stuff before he hulked out, and she's recording it, you know, what her findings. The scientist in her.
Yeah, because there's no music. It's just her narrating and him smashing the shit out of this thing trying to get out. And I feel like the way they kind of posit a lot of the scenes, it comes off very horrific because you start to worry, again, if you are unaware of what this thing is or what it's capable of, you think if it gets out, it's going to do something to her. It's going to hurt her.
It's
and
punching
she's even
through
scared.
6-inch glass and a steel tube. Yeah, I'd be like getting out of there. But nope, she's calm, just getting closer, trying to, you know, definitely scientist. Like, no, I'm not going. This is too fascinating. You know, I'll die, but I'm going to, you know. She did not go anywhere, man. Not phased.
No. She was dedicated to this man, which she admits to later. He gets out, and it's just kind of a standoff, but you kind of see like he's not sure what to do. She's not sure what to do. And, you know, just calm down. It's okay.
I'm not going to hurt you.
Sit down, chill out, and this is where we get to see another, you know, full.
So this is where we see their graphics for detransitioning, which they probably should have left out. Now, maybe it looked better on 70s TV. Let's give it that. We definitely have a lot more pixels that we're working with and all this kind of stuff. I don't think it was a remastered version, though.
No,
however.
absolutely not.
But they tried, guys. And it was like, you could tell it was like overlapping film because they would have David's face a little bit behind the Hulk's face and then kind of transforming and a green light that just glowed only on his face. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this one. I think we should have just cut back to her face and then come back to him with contacts, cut back to her face and then back to him normal and then called it a day. Because, oof, that was rough. At the time, it might have been fine. But like now I'm like, ew, that's kind of cringe.
I mean, I'll definitely admit now, as much as I'm praising this, there are dated elements. Sure. Effects like that are very dated. And that one, I mean, the first one that they did, it was a little bit more like you mentioned, where they had the water to kind of play with it to where you couldn't really see it. So it was just kind of waving about. So when they did the transition, you're like, okay, so they kind of hit it. But here they were doing something a little bit more forward. And the fade ins, fade outs. At the time, I'm sure it was like very...
It might have looked cool then, yeah, for sure.
Practical, but also kind of neat. But today, by today's standards, it's a very dated practice. But it worked. For what it is.
It made its point.
And I do want to, since we're talking about dated elements, the one thing, and it's so interesting to me, considering what comes from this, would be the music. Outside of the iconic piano music.
Yes. Very chill, by the way, for a superhero type thing, I think.
There's a lot of 70s inspired sounds.
Yeah.
Like, I know when stuff gets a little intense, you hear the bongo drums. So it has a very 70s sound to the soundtrack.
I mean, even looking at it, geez. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, the brown plaid suits and like it's very like, I know where I'm at right now.
Yeah. It's definitely a product of its time for sure. There's no trying to be like, well, what time could this be?
No, you can't.
Is it out of time? No.
Unless you're fresh out of the box into this world, I don't know how you would miss that era for sure.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm not knocking the music. The music works, but I feel like if there were certain elements to it where, I don't know, it just didn't have that 70s element to it. It could be it could elevate it just a hair more. Sure. But again, this has the iconic music that we all know. We hear it throughout, along with some other themes that they've used in subsequent episodes of the show. So it did start something, but then again, dated elements to
and the transitions could have been a little easier too when we were going from one type of music back into the piano music or something. It's like it just felt jarring because it's just such a stark change between the two. Not even the same instruments, I'm just like, what are we? Okay, I guess we're ending now. I don't know. Or he's sad.
Yeah, because I don't.
One of the two. He's either walking sad or it's the end of the show.
So then I think it was about after he had calmed down from that, and then they were kind of discussing everything because trying to figure out what happened. And she said, "What did you feel?" And he was like, "Rage, anger." So then they start to try and piece together what triggers it, what could have happened, why the rage center. And even I did appreciate this too, how she even says as she's recording, it's like a child throwing a tantrum, And then as they're kind of discussing maybe what happened throughout the transformation, she mentions like it triggered some primitive part of the brain. And it's almost like your normal cognitive senses just are put in the back seat, and this primitive part.
Just this primal beast. Yeah.
Whatever happened to his DNA, it's like it triggered that in his brain, and that's what comes out as part of this beast. So it kind of gave some credibility to the transformation. What exactly is happening? And I thought that was kind of a neat little thing because I don't feel like that they've, again, in the movies or whatever.
I'm not sure.
They're just like, well, you got blasted with this and then the superhero serum, so it's all that shit mixed together and now you're just like this big beast, versus it's something in your DNA that it's triggering on top of the radiation.
2 million gammas you took. But I have to admit, my big complaint with that scene was how he kept going, "That's impossible." And I'm like, look, I know she's a woman in the 70s, but she literally just watched it. Okay. Can you just stop trying to correct her on what just happened to you? You don't know.
Yeah.
I did want to slap him around a little bit there. It's like, that's not possible. And it's like, dude, I just watched you grow into a green man. And you're going to tell me I'm wrong? You know? Like.
But give Elena a lot of credit. She pushed back hard on every time.
I am right, damn it.
Yeah, it was like, that's what I loved about her character so much. Susan Sullivan, by the way, we didn't even shout out her the actual actress's name. Seen her in a lot of shit too. But she, like, anytime he would argue and be like, like the killing thing, she was like, well, we know that you don't kill. And she's like, we're not talking about me. We're talking about the monster. She's like, no, we're talking about you. You are it. He is you. You don't kill. He doesn't kill. And he just wanted to keep arguing. She's like, damn it.
Look, I just talked to him. He didn't touch me. He didn't try to hurt me or nothing. He looked at me a little like, I don't understand what's happening right now. And that's it, you know? Yeah. Like, listen to her.
She gave it her all. Like, she did not let him just be like, well, this is what's happening. Yeah. She's like, no, we're going to continue to do this. We're going to figure this out. And you're going to stop arguing with me because I'm seeing shit that you are not.
Right.
I'm the
if
one
we only
on the
had cameras in that time, we would have just been like, look, dude. But, you know.
Yeah. Which is funny, too, because they even kind of reference that. And I don't know how to, because, again, I can't recall every single episode, but I guess it would have to be true to some degree, is, say, for example, with this episode, the brief moment that he saw his white eyes within the water. Say that was about as much of a reflection of that character as he got to see. If you go to the Death of the Incredible Hulk movie, in that one, they actually did get video of him transforming. Like, he partnered with a guy, and they trapped him in this laser field because, you know, it's science and whatnot.
Right.
And he hulks out, and then they recorded it to try and see what happened, and then kind of hit him with like a narcotic, pass him out, and then he comes to. So now he could actually see it on video, and they had a scene where he's just sitting there looking at it, and it's like, I've never seen this before. Like, actually seen it.
Yeah.
And he was just, that's
yeah,
me.
I don't know how I would take that in either. Like, this is what I've been doing for 5 years? Holy crap. Yeah. I knew it was bad because my shit's always ripped up and I never know where I'm at the end of the day.
Sure.
Like, you know.
But I just thought that was kind of an interesting
I don't know situation. That I've seen that
like
one.
They've never done that. Yeah. And you know someone's had to have taken, I'm sure, Bigfoot style video, you know, where it's like the cameras and shit like that. Like, look, we caught him.
Whatever they had back then. Well, it had to be like these giant contraptions, if I'm remembering. That's like mobile cameras, like they were sitting on top of your shoulder and you needed like 3 men to hold, you know, like I don't know that's that mobile, you know. But
see, now, okay, so from this point, I think this is where we wound up because after they were having this discussion, the police show up and are looking for David to question him about his car, which has been destroyed.
Which he threw down a hill, yeah.
So he had to think on the fly.
Not very well, mind you.
Not very well.
No, he's not good at that.
At least it was somewhat believable to say that your friend had a key, may have taken it.
I mean, if that would have been the first thing he said, instead of being like, I don't know what happened to the car, so you don't know what happened to the car. I was just missing this morning. And so did you report it? No, because my friend had a key, you know, and I'm just like, if I was the cop, you didn't know and it was missing and now you think it's your friend. Okay. Was anybody in the car? No. Oh, yeah. Whew. Yeah. I don't know. Just thought my friend took
But
Jesus Christ, dude.
He didn't commit a crime. It's just like your car is smashed up and you need to get it out of there.
Do they actually charge you for things like that? I'm curious.
Well,
it's like the dude's like, you're going to get billed for the cleanup. And I'm like, what?
I mean, why not? Someone's got to do it.
I don't know. If someone legit stole what am I talking about? Anytime someone does something nefarious to someone else's property, it's always the person holding the property with the bag. So what am I talking about? Anyway, go ahead. But yes.
Anyway, but as they're having this conversation, who should reappear but Mr. Jack McGee?
Mr. Jack.
Has his well-documented footprint.
He does. That blaster cast.
Just carrying it around like, see, look what I found.
Yeah, it doesn't even fit in the bag he brought it in. Jesus fuck, guys.
But he's convinced you got some Bigfoot.
Well, I mean, that is a Bigfoot.
He even calls him, Big Hulk.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. He's the one who named him, basically, huh? Like this Hulk. Like what?
But it wasn't. I felt like within the context of the narrative, like how the conversation went. It wasn't like I personally don't use that term. To describe a big person, but I mean, I'm sure it was common back then.
Maybe.
So he just kind of said it casually. It's like, yeah, this Big Hulk, he scared the hell out of this, father and daughter, and like it worked.
And then everybody believed them that they saw a green monster. See, that's the thing. Everyone was too trusting. I feel that wouldn't be the case.
Well, to be fair, the cops didn't seem to be on board with that because they did chastise him when he started asking questions. He was like, do not spread your bullshit gossip around here. It's like, we do not need a panic. Go away.
Yeah. Like you probably do with a lot of, journalists. Yeah.
So they kind of do their deflecting, David and Elena just being like, hey, you can't come in because we got some kind of virus.
Like man-eating virus in there or something. It's like, you guys are fine. Well, we had gear and we don't have 3 gears.
Are inoculated or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that was it. They had like their
you had your shots. Nope.
Wait, what?
So he toddles off as they go to try and figure out what they're going to do next. Their next move, I can't remember what exactly they were going to go to. I think they were just going to grab some more gear. I think they went
back to the office for something, and then we're coming right back.
Right. So during the time that they were gone, Jack McGee sneaks in. He starts spotting the pressure chamber has been destroyed, and of course he's not convinced. He
sees the foot.
Right.
Yeah.
He knows that something's up.
Yeah.
And about the time, as he's investigating, as he snuck in, because did they actually show where he got in at?
I think it was through a window.
So it was through a window. Okay,
yeah. Like, because the door was locked, and then he kept going around the building, peeking in, and then I think he found a window he could climb through. Yeah.
So he got in through the window, he found, like you said, the footprint, the shattered glass, and
the destroyed tube.
They come back in. He hides off in a closet, and he can hear them referring to when our friend returns, maybe we'll be ready. So he's already starting to piece some shit together. Now, this is the scene where I say that this son of a bitch
you have to have faith.
This is where that son of a bitch is responsible for everything going forward. Okay?
100%.
Because this scene could have played out in a much different way where maybe an accident occurred of a different sort. But Jack McGee is responsible for everything going forward at this point.
Yep.
Because as he's hiding off in that closet, they're trying to gather their gear so they can move to another facility. They were talking about some other bigger, stronger facility where they can hopefully figure out. That's what they were doing. They were trying an X-ray injection, whatever the fuck that is.
They kept saying X-ray reversal, which I was like, ooh, I've not heard of this science either. Yeah. X-ray reversal, like we can take the gammas out, apparently. By putting you in the same machine and just hitting reverso. I don't know.
Something like that, yeah. But it didn't work.
No,
so
it didn't.
So then they again come back trying to regroup and figure out what they're going to do. And as I think they were looking for some printer paper or something like that, goes to the closet where Jack is hiding. And I'm not sure what the hell he knocked over, but it was a form of flammable acid material. It was
some sort of acid because they made a point of us seeing it smoking as it was hitting the ground. Yeah. While they're having this conversation now out front. Like, why are you here, dude?
Yeah, a big jug of this stuff.
Big jug of this stuff. Which apparently, I'll let you finish, but yeah.
Well, he just kind of stumbles back, it falls over, starts leaking out, and there's apparently something else that I'm assuming that if it ignites whenever they come into contact. It looked
like fertilizer. And then first thing I went was, so we keep the fertilizer with the flammable liquids in the same closet in this science. Okay. All right. Yeah. Fine. That's how they did it then, I guess.
But no one is expecting them to be like that situation. I understand accidents happen.
Like, here we have the perfect case in point why they should be in a different room. Why do you need fertilizer? That's my first question. What science in that room needs fertilizer? I swear to God, that's what it looked like. If I could remember the brand name that I saw on it. But yeah, it looks like those big bags of fertilizer you'd buy out front of like Home Depot. Just sitting in the closet.
So he drags, I mean, obviously Jack McGee is trying to be like, call them out on their bullshit. It's like, I'm not buying it. You're telling me that this did this and this did that, but you're telling me there's this other thing. I know you're lying.
I see the water footprint right there. And yeah.
So David just yanks him outside, and then that's where we get our classic "Don't make me angry" line, because he's just go fuck off. But at that moment, the chemical reaction collides, and the entire building goes up into flames, like a
immense explosion.
Bomb went off.
Yeah.
So panic ensues.
And I was
Obviously,
like,
David's
Jesus
trying to get
Christ,
back in there.
They just killed Elena. I'm going, did they really just do that? But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking because I don't know if she would have actually been able to help cure him, but she would have never given up.
No, she wouldn't have. But, you know, him being him, he's having flashbacks. So we think Jack's walked away. David's peeking around the building. He's like going to help her. And then, of course, Hulk's out. And instead of walking through the window, he just breaks the wall. As you do, as the Hulk, yeah, sure. Saves her, and then they go, you know, running off into the woods. So we're all like, ooh, I don't think Jack saw it, but I was like, nope, he did. So he saw Hulk carrying Elena running somewhere. Yeah. And then another giant explosion happens.
But
yeah.
As he assumed, because he started calling for David again. So he still assumed David was still inside and then died within the explosion.
Right.
So I
can understand that.
Yeah. They never specified what exactly his thought process was, but I'm assuming he just assumed the Hulk came in, caused that explosion, and then
he thinks he's innocent of the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hulk
like
did it.
Just some big disaster. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We know the truth.
The Hulk did it.
The Hulk did it, and that's it. Yeah. But then we come to the next heartbreaking scene to me is we don't ever get a sense of the Hulk's intelligence or like he can process anything, but clearly he knows her. Like there's some part of his subconscious that knows her. He sees her dying and it's tearing him apart. Like he knows he can't save her, and she confesses her love to David, which now, to be fair, because we were talking about the time frame.
That's why I was saying that in that moment, I was like, if it's only actually been 10 months. I mean, if you're on your way out, I guess if you want to have nice last words, then fine. But like,
but what I was going to say is perhaps they've worked together for a long time.
Sure. Probably.
Perhaps she's just had unrequited love for him, and she's just kept it to herself.
Because of this. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
David could have been the same way. Maybe he liked her, but he loved Laura, and it was never a thing. And then even after Laura died, it was just like, I don't want to do this again. So he kept his distance. Like you saw them kind of having a little playful back and forth. Like there was the donut scene, which I love.
Yeah, that is cute. That was cute, yeah.
But there was never anything more than that. It was just like, you see they're chummy. You see they kind of care for one another, but he's at a distance, you know, like I don't want to do this, you know, despite how I may feel. So I feel like that's fair. It was never something like they were secretly being, because that would have
been weird. Yeah, like they've secretly been like this whole time. But no, she tells the Hulk that, you know, she's always been in love with him and always will. And she made a point like, I don't know if you can even understand me right now or anything that's coming out of my mouth, you know. But then, then she passes away. And the Hulk, of course, cries out because, like, holy crap, again, right? Yeah. I was like, why? Why does it have to be both? Like,
it's like it sets up the tragedy that is this character.
Yeah.
I mean, wholeheartedly. So from that point, we get to her funeral, and we see that he's got a headstone right next to her.
Which, by the way, why wasn't he by his wife?
I don't know.
I thought that was weird that they were both like getting buried next to each other. And I was like, maybe secret backstory is she was a secret stalker and had all of this arranged knowing that he wouldn't be able to say anything because they'd both be dead or whatever. But yeah, strange to put them next to each other when we already know his wife is there, you know, like I don't know, unless she was on the other side and we just didn't bother to show it, but
or he didn't have a plot nearby or something. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah,
There's a lot of other factors.
There's a lot of weird things, but sure. Okay, anyway.
It would
But
also
yes.
not work with the narrative of him having to walk next to his grave and hers. It just
That's true.
can't walk across
We
the
can't
entire...
have 2 shots.
Yeah,
We
what?
We spent it all on B-roll.
But we also see that in this scene that Jack McGee has officially called out the Hulk as the murderer that he
The
is.
one who
and
did this. Yep.
Police now have a warrant out on it. And
Yeah.
all this jazz, kind of setting up the plot going forward.
Yeah.
But what I also appreciate is even how they end this.
Mhm.
Like, that could have been it, and it still works as that.
As that movie.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't really have to have that, because from that point on, you're just wondering, like, you would still wonder what becomes of David, but that story's kind of told if you think about it. He just now has to
Button it
live
up.
with this curse, and he's going to be hunted. It's tragic as all fuck.
Right.
But it works as an ending right there. But yeah, he shows up after everyone has kind of left the funeral. Kind of stands
He
over
attends his own funeral. Yeah.
just looks over it and then walks over to Elena. And now tell me how you kind of interpret this scene, because he does also confess love for Elena and then says, I think you love me too, even though you never said it. So do you think that maybe subconsciously he's remembering, or that he literally just doesn't remember and was just confessing?
I think maybe for the impact of the scene, he doesn't know and is just confessing, because that would be even more tragic for us as a watcher, that like they both did say it, neither got to hear it.
Right.
So I kind of feel like with the way they've already been setting this up, that my mind went straight to the dark place of he didn't hear it, and now they're both stuck, if you assume she's in her afterlife or whatever, that neither of them actually got to admit it to each other, and now he's got to live with that moving forward, because why catch him a break,
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
They weren't nice to him at all in this episode, so like I can't imagine then he would have gotten the satisfaction of knowing Elena actually told him that. So yeah, that's my thought.
Well, anyway.
What do you think? Did you think it was subconscious? Or
I kind of think I went the same route. Like, you want to believe that he heard or understood, but the way he words, even though you never said it, if it was something along the lines of,
I feel like you would have said it,
or I believe you loved me too, and just left it there.
Yeah.
But he said, even though you never said it, that to me indicates that he didn't hear it. Like, nothing in his mind said it. But if he'd have just said, I think you love me too. Yeah. That, to
left
me,
it
would say,
open-ended.
yeah. Like, oh yeah, he remembered. He
remembers something.
Vaguely remembers something, but no.
I think it's just part of the tragedy that neither of them will have ever known. For real. Yeah.
Now, as I know, we've broken down practically this entire 90-minute
pretty much
episode,
scene for scene. Yeah.
with some, variations in between. But I genuinely feel like it's a solid, for a made-for-television movie in the 1970s.
Yeah.
It's so much better than a lot of even Hulk-related media that has come out recently.
Sure.
Is.
Yeah.
And no one talks about it. Again, people talk about the show as a whole as,
Right.
yeah, I remember that thing.
Yeah.
But this particular thing, the pilot episode, has so much drama, has so much emotional punch.
Yeah.
That is missing from so many other movies. And I would classify this as one of the better comic book-based movies ever made. And that's made for television, damn it.
Yeah.
Because of the emotional gut punches. I feel like you were invested in this character because of that stuff. Like, you can relate. Like, how far would you go? And then if you got stuck between a rock and a hard place, what would you do? But then you see the tragedy that befalls him, and it's like, what did he do to deserve this?
Right. That's another thing where I'm like, dude.
Yeah. Like, he just
how
cannot
you're
catch
so
a break.
well adjusted. And I mean, who knows who all he lost before then? I don't know. But I mean, if that's like a 10-month period of time, I'd lose my mind. Well,
Yeah.
I've had things like that too close together. It's, oh my God. Yeah. If he's not just straight the Hulk for the rest of his life from just being straight up angry, I'd be shocked. Or I wouldn't be shocked, I guess. It's like, yeah, you're just always mad. Of course you are. This has not been fair. Like, all things you can't control nor fix,
Certainly.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw this out there as a recommendation. If you can find it on stream, I don't know if it's actually like the show itself is streaming on a specific platform. You might be able to find it on something like Tubi or
I'm not sure. I didn't search
something like that.
Yeah,
but I do know that you can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Vudu. You can find it on the places that you normally find television shows or streaming. So I want to throw it out there as a recommendation because I truly think. I'm not even saying if you want to watch the rest of the show from that point on, go for it.
Yeah.
But
the first episode or two, however it's presented to you and you find it.
Yeah. I want people to go check that out because I feel like it's forgotten and it's underrated because no one talks about it.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear other people's thoughts about it. Like if you actually remember it, what do you think? Because I genuinely feel like it's such a great take on the material and again forgotten because of the time in which it came out of, and it's not the big budget bullshit.
So then were the real only big changes of this origin story was how the Gamma got into him and of course his name?
Pretty much.
Okay,
I mean,
because I was like trying to remember the other ones and it always seemed like it was more intentional or something unless I just never really paid that much attention. You know, because like with you even saying that's pretty much shot for shot of like 2008 movie, like having just rewatched it, I don't remember, so I would have to go back now and then it might click like okay, you know. But I guess maybe I just always assumed it was an intentional accident, kind of like most of all of the ones that have been from human to superhero, like how Spider-Man was just an accident because of lightning going through, you know, like was it the same thing with him, but then we just changed it so it didn't seem like a comic book, and like if he did it to himself, that's more drama. Like, you know, I was just curious about, you know, how many of the origin story changes was made to fit the show.
Right. And I think even for the way they were kind of presenting the narrative, because there was even a line in there where he was talking about not wanting to be Dr. Jekyll. I think that was kind of the intention, is that he kind of like Dr. Jekyll. There was that formula. He did this thing thinking it was going to help something, and then it just kind of backfired. So now he's kind of having to live with that choice of being irresponsible. Did
his body die in other ones too, and he just kind of lived like the rest of the world thinking Bruce Banner was dead? No. See that that where I thought it was a huge deviation also, that he's no longer going to be a scientist. I would imagine at this point forward he's dead as far as anyone who knew him is concerned, you know.
And little things that they'll touch on in those television movies, like I mentioned, I think in the very first one he runs into an old friend who remembers him from college. And he was like, hey, I remember you. You're David Banner. You're supposed to be dead. And then in the last movie, he is in a science facility, kind of like this, I guess. And he's looking over research from another guy, but he's also helping him secretly at night, like looking through his formulas, making adjustments. And this guy's like, there's a phantom helping me. I don't know what's happening. He said, but all my formulas are being changed, but it's improving. Everything's it's helping my research. I don't understand. And then when he finally does confront him and sees that it's him, he's like, holy shit, it is a ghost. Because he knows that he's supposed to be dead.
Dude. Yeah. Most of us did. All of us did.
So at least they do acknowledge that. But no, in the comics and stuff like that, no, he's alive and well. And it just became, first, we're just chasing this Hulk and Bruce Banner's that guy and no one pays any attention to him. And then eventually everybody finds out, oh, he's the same one and the same guy. So we don't need to piss him off. And maybe
you wouldn't like him when he's angry.
Maybe he'll be a good guy. Maybe he'll still be a monster. Who knows? Well, it just depends on what mood we're in. Because there's so much Hulk lore that
that's fair. But I just knew someone like you probably had read a lot of the comics also. Whereas I've only done visual media when it comes to any of this superhero stuff, you know, like on TV and stuff. So when I saw those and especially I totally had forgotten about his name being David. So when I first heard David, or when they were like David and Laura, David loves Laura, or whatever it was when she was writing on his cast or whatever it was she was writing, I was like, wait a minute. And I was like, that's not right. And he goes, yeah, Bruce. And I'm like, why the hell is he David in the show? And so we had to pause. I'm like, nope, I'm going to have to search this because I'm not going to be able to get over the fact that his name is David. And then, saw that the director's like, it's too comic booky. But then like he's credited as David Bruce Banner. And was it that way from the beginning, or was that like to appease people towards the end?
I'm sure that was kind of the compromise they came to, because in the comics his name is Robert Bruce Banner. Why they couldn't use Robert?
Couldn't they use Robert? Yeah.
I don't know.
Is Robert too
maybe
feminine for him also, or whatever the reason was for Bruce? Bruce seems like a manly name to me.
Yeah, you think. But maybe again, the comic
maybe
book
he
thing,
had a bunch of gay friends named Bruce, and so he just couldn't compartmentalize as the director or whomever was making these decisions. And in the 70s, that was a problem for them. I don't know.
And now I'm kind of glad you brought him up, because I did want to touch on that. The writer, director, and producer of this movie was Kenneth Johnson. And when I noticed that his name was like attached to all three, I was like, "Oh shit, he did like all the heavy lifting."
No, he did all of it. Yeah.
But he was responsible for other television shows that some of us may remember. Like, do you remember V, which is about the aliens that with the snake skin?
Yeah, that was very short lived, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like it was like a little mini series. Yeah, and I think became an actual series.
Ooh,
but
I haven't thought about that forever. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I think he worked on $6 Million Man and The Bionic Woman, did some episodes and stuff like that. Even did Alienation, which is
but he didn't want to do anything that didn't feel real, eh?
Weird, right?
It's just like, I hear that and I know there was probably one time he said that, and now that's all I'm clinging to.
Sure.
But I just, still.
But I also do want to throw him under the bus for being the writer for the that god-awful movie, Steel, with Shaquille O'Neal.
Dude, all you had to do was say he was the actor, and I would have been like, what?
He even directed that movie too. So he's done good and he's done bad. He did also direct, and I don't know how
Charles
this may
Napier was in that too, huh? So he liked to borrow the same actors. That's funny.
He did. He also directed, and I do want to. This may be a topic for another day, because I don't know who remembers these movies like I do. You may, I'm sure you do.
Okay.
But I feel like this is also a franchise that has probably, it's not even a franchise, it's 2 movies, but I guarantee you kids today have no fucking clue what it is. Short Circuit. He directed,
yes. Aww.
He directed the second one.
Oh, okay.
And I genuinely like it just as much as the first one, but that's me.
I'd have to go watch those again. But yeah, those were cute. I remembered it. You fall in love with the little guy. Yeah.
But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, because that's an entire episode right there.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, I recommend this. If you want to, like I said, want to watch the rest of the show, that's up to you. But just the pilot episode, if you can find it, Amazon, Vudu, wherever. If you can find it for free, absolutely go for it there. But I just want people to check it out.
Yeah,
because
honestly, I might watch some more of it, just because I don't really remember anything from it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think even the follow-up episodes.
It was a 2-parter also, according to
It was also
Voodoo.
a 2-parter, yeah.
And then it seemed like it was a one-off episodes from there or whatever, or at least the first season. I
have a vague recollection of that episode. If it's the episode I'm thinking of, he met someone and they were doing like therapy, like he was trying to.
She dies. Yeah. No.
I don't remember if she dies. But considering. But no, he was having to do therapy, like he was trying to talk out everything going on with the therapist, and then somewhere in that conversation he gets triggered.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was I thought it was like a very the way the scene played out from memory. Mm-hmm. And again, sometimes my memory sees something not exactly, but
not reliable.
But from memory, I thought it was a pretty cool scene, because it was like he was talking it through, and then it's just like snap, like a light switch went off, and it was like it just triggered mid session.
God, yeah. So hopefully he ran away for her sake.
See, now I want to go watch it too.
Yeah, I probably will, because I did enjoy it. Yes. Did I make fun of some of the stuff along the way? Yes. Sure.
And again, I'm not saying
that's part of the fun, though. Yeah, you're not going to be like, oh my God, cinematic history here, but for its time. Yeah, for the narrative. And I mean, still the actors were pretty solid. I mean, you could tell it was a 70s way of doing things. Like the acting style is definitely a little different over the years. We've tend to be a little bit more realistic and smaller now than they used to be. I don't know. I think that's the problem with hiring theater actors a lot too. When you're trying to make that transition, some theater actors just can't do film very well. We're too used to playing to an entire room. So when you have a camera right up to your face, picking up all these little small things, if you overact even just a smidge, it just looks huge on a screen. You almost have to feel weird at how small you're making all of your facial expressions. But when you see it back, it's like it nailed it. But you're going to feel like, am I even doing anything with my face right now? You know? So I think you probably borrowed a lot of theater actors probably back in that day. And it just, I don't know. Yeah. You can tell with some of them, they're just a little bit too much when they're delivering their lines, you know?
No, I mean, I think you're spot on. I mean, even I was watching a movie from the 50s the other day, and it's still that it's like they're trying to find themselves outside of the stage performances and still trying to get into this new film idea, so that it's not quite there, but you see the style. Right. And very much so here. Yeah, I can see that. But I did want to touch on that, going back to Susan Sullivan for a second. One of my favorite scenes with her is when she's interacting with the mother and son, trying to discuss everything. She is so on point, like an actual scientist, or I guess
she just
not
was
really
treating them all so well. Like this is what she does every day, and just
exactly.
So when they could come across just like you're not even thinking about them being an actor, done. That's what you need to do. Like I shouldn't be thinking you're trying to act. Few of those people they interviewed, they were trying to act, you know, but like even the mom to a degree in some of it, but you know, when she got into the story, it flowed a little bit better, but the whole setting it up a little bit, you know, there's some cheese in there, but very, very seamless in that whole, like, this is what I do every day, talking with the kid, made it all seem very natural, brought everybody back down. Yeah. Nice.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know, that's again, one of those things that just helps sell it to me to then go and try to sell it to other people, because it could be so much worse.
Yeah.
You know, literally of the time in which it came out. I'll even do a comparison, and it may be unfair, and some may even wonder why the fuck I'm even throwing this under the bus, because I'll admit I've watched it several times, and I don't think I can appreciate the cheese.
Okay.
But Spider-Man, which also came out on television around, I think maybe a year after, because, you know, The Incredible Hulk was popular, and they were like, we got to do another.
We got to do stuff like that. But instead of Peter, we should call him Paul.
Paul Parker, because Peter, that may insinuate something. But in that, like the pilot episode of that, there's some cheesy stuff because they're having to go a step further. Now you got to make him crawl up the walls, and there was some really, like, you thought that CG with the face, you ain't seen nothing yet until you've seen Peter Parker crawling on his house.
Yeah, wasn't it just him crawling on the ground, but they turn the camera to the side or something? So it's like when he's trying to look like he's struggling, it really just looks like he's crawling.
I think it was more like he was crawling on a blue screen, and they just took some shots, and then they superimposed him on the house, and going like, that doesn't... What?
Okay, well that...
Yeah, he did. He seems a little big for the house.
You could tell he was placed there. No,
like they even had him going up a pole, like on the porch, and his hands are like this, and you're like, what the fuck?
What is he?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Oh, that's funny.
So it is nowhere near that. Okay.
Yeah, I want to go see this now. I don't even know if I knew about this TV show, if I'm honest. How long was it on? Like
it didn't last very long.
Yeah, okay.
No, I think overall it was about 13 episodes. And that was over 2 seasons, believe it or not.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what year? Because now
1978, 9.
Because I definitely, Lace, was going to have to go back and try to find an episode or so of that one. I'll find it, but if
I can point you in the direction.
Yeah, let's do that because I want to now.
Because I think I've even I've got a YouTube channel I can direct you to. I know for a fact. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I definitely want to check that out. At least 1 or 2.
Anyway. But it's not like that. But yeah, I've said all I got to say about this.
No, I liked it. I enjoyed it. Thank you for bringing it up because I don't know that I would have ever thought to go back and I'm assuming rewatch it. But again, to me, that was like watching it brand new again because I would have been little and I don't really remember that being the origin story. Solid work. Yeah.
All right, well, gang, we want to hear from you. Let us know what you think. If you've seen this, if you want to see it now, maybe we kind of talked you into it. Who knows? Whatever it may be, do that at Super Mega Crash on whatever social media platform you find us on. If you want to send us an email, you can do that, supermegacrash@gmail.com. Patreon.com/Pencil Paper Productions if you want to chuck in $1 for some things that... Christ, I wish I'd have just gotten all this stuff up, you know?
Yeah, you might have had it early, but, things happen, and we'll get there.
We'll figure it back out as soon as I get out of my funk. I've just got to get... I remember the funk before, by God, and I got over it.
Yeah.
You can leave us a 5-star review on your favorite app, and you can keep up with any and all things, pencilpaperproductions.com/supermegacrash. Links are in the show notes. Join us again next week, siblings. But until then, go beyond your limits.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.